Hello and welcome to Massive Implications, the show where every 2 weeks we do a deep dive into a topic or question that, of course, brings with it massive implications to be dealt with. I'm your host, Joe Quinn, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Jake.
Hi.
And this week we're discussing Everyone is Now Immortal. So, I guess we gotta lay down some ground rules. Because when I first pitched you this question, there were two scenarios that we immediately came up with.
Yep, we should clarify which ones we're talking about. So we're going to do both,
Yep,
obviously. We are doing one where you can't die of old age, but you can still be killed through regular means.
So murder is still on the table.
Myrtle's on the table, diseases on the table, all those things. But you can't die of old age. So you
Oh,
peak at 25 in time.
So disease is still on the table.
Well, of course.
Oops.
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 What do you mean, oops?
Oops.
Okay, disease isn't on the table, maybe.
All right.
But basically, old age isn't a thing, you know?
Right.
And then there's the other scenario, which is that you're straight up divinely immortal. You cannot die no matter what.
Yep.
So you either heal or you're just bulletproof inherently, whatever. But that's the way it is. There's two scenarios.
So now that I maybe we could have talked a little more about that first scenario, but let's go with the completely immortal scenario first because
Really? Okay.
I think personally I think it'll be not as I don't know if it'll be as deep of a discussion because things will just I think we'll be kind of in agreement on things that happen.
Okay. How do you want to start it? Because I have a few different ways to take this.
So the way I think it's gonna start, right, is you're gonna wake up and just somehow someone's gonna discover that they cannot die.
Yep.
I think it's gonna be a little morbid at first. You know, maybe
Sure.
someone is gonna try to commit suicide.
Mhm.
You know, it's a morbid thought, but they're not gonna be successful.
Mhm.
It's not that they're they're hurt and they're just do it again. They felt no pain.
Yep.
And with that, they're gonna probably start telling their friends or people around them that they cannot die.
Yeah.
And then other people are probably gonna test this. So at first, I think it's gonna be a little. I think there's gonna be a little anarchy of people doing stuff that they haven't been able to do before.
Yep.
I'm thinking skydiving or going underwater and seeing the ocean.
Okay, so at first, I actually had a big thought on that. I think it's going to be further than that. I
Okay.
think people would become extremophiles. So, people would, jump inside volcanoes,
Mhm.
they'd swim in the lava for a little bit,
Mhm.
maybe strap some rocks to their shoes
Right,
and walk
right.
under the surface of the ocean for a few years or decades or centuries. I mean, who
Mhm.
gives a shit? You literally have forever,
Right.
you know? So you can do whatever you want to whenever. There's, no consequences. So,
Mhm.
I think at first, that shock of oh, I can do anything, anywhere, at any time, for any reason, to do whatever with no repercussions at all. That sounds like fun. Let's do it, you know?
Yeah, we kind of have the same idea there. I'm glad that we're not everybody just knows that they're immortal. For
No,
some
no,
reason.
no. It's chaos.
Another scenario I wrote is a person on their deathbed and they pull the plug.
Yeah.
Because another thing I want to lay out, I don't know if you're going to
Sure.
agree with me on this, but if you're immortal, you still are keeping the body that you had from before.
Yeah.
So
nothing changes.
let's say you're, I don't know, let's say you're paralyzed from the waist down.
Okay.
You're not going to you're not now going to be able to walk. If you were in a coma, you're going to stay in that coma.
Yep.
But things like if you were on life support, you no longer need to be on life support. You can just unplug and then you're going to be alive. That was the scenario. That's another scenario I came up with. Someone's going to unplug people on life support.
Yep.
And there's going to be, A-okay.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Mhm.
That really, really sucks because you don't have in the scenario where you're perfectly divinely immortal,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way out. So if you, I don't know, let's take it a step further. If you're paralyzed from the neck down,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't die ever, then you're just going to be sitting there for centuries or thousands of years or whatever until the sun burns out of the sky.
But you're still going to be alive.
And you're still going to be alive, just chilling with the sun burning out of the sky. And you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, I kind of want to keep things a little more grounded first before.
Sure.
Literally grounded.
Literally.
I want to
okay.
keep things a little
Yep.
literally grounded. Another thing that's probably going to come from this is what industries do you now need? The food industry is gone.
That's a big deal.
The
That's a big deal.
hospital, there's no need for hospitals anymore. Medical industry is gone. That's
Mhm.
going to destroy the economy. Just those two things alone. If there's no need for food
Yep.
because you can't die, food, water. You
Right.
you don't need that anymore.
Right.
You're immortal.
You'd
That's
think.
that's like a luxury at that point.
Right, exactly. Like you would think that like at first like, oh my god, everyone's immortal, we'll run out of resources. Nope. We don't need resources.
Yeah.
We literally would not need anything to survive. On its surface, that's pretty freaking cool. You can start doing weird things with your life. Like you could watch every film, just every film ever filmed from the dawn of cinema.
Here's the thing though. Will you be able to?
Why wouldn't you?
Because that's a luxury.
That is a luxury, sure.
Why do you need that luxury?
Well, you don't need to. You just, what if you want to? What if you wanted to play every video game for as long as you want with no repercussions?
So what if there's not enough room?
Room for video games?
Room for people.
People?
You'll have to start making room. Now, here's another thing, right? You can't get snipped, you know. You can't get snipped, you can't get your tubes tied, because that would be considered pain.
Yep.
That's an injury.
Sure. And your body would heal it immediately if that's the case.
People would still be able to procreate.
Sure.
They're at that point, you can't, and because you can't limit procreation, you're gonna have to start making room fast. No more houses, no more, movie theaters, stuff like that.
I mean,
for a little bit, sure, but you're not going to be able to watch everything because at some point it's going to have to be destroyed. And that's another thing. What about those people that are paralyzed from the waist down or people that are in comas? They're kind of just taking up room, wouldn't you say?
But what else can you do? You can't do anything with them.
Exactly.
Well,
so here's my thought.
Let me. Do you mind if I respond to the alleged overpopulation type
Hey, go
thing?
right ahead.
Soylent Green style. I really don't think that that's much of an issue because, as mentioned, the entirety of the oceans are in play now.
Sure.
So people could just live there. You are underestimating the community of people that would absolutely live in the ocean. If they want to.
I understand that.
You know?
But you are going to run out of room eventually. The reason why we have enough room on Earth as it is people die.
Yes, that is a fair point.
If everybody from history is still alive, then there's no room left.
That is true. But I feel like, and we're going to get into literally grounded, not meaning literally grounded anymore in a second. But my point is, I think that there is the room, and it wouldn't necessarily be where you think it would be.
So I want to get back on people that cannot do anything, basically. Sure. It's as morbid as it sounds, it's not going to kill them, but who's going to want to like live inside a volcano? Obviously there might be some people, but my idea is you throw people where like no one would ever want to live. So if people are in comas, that volcano is now a coma volcano. Just filled with people that cannot function.
Okay, yeah, but like the reason that places aren't where people want to live is because they're dangerous, generally.
Right.
So they're no longer dangerous.
I would still say that you wouldn't want to live in a volcano, even if you like couldn't feel pain or anything like that.
Maybe.
I think some people, it's possible, but I don't think people are going to be like lining up to live inside volcanoes.
Well, I still think that like everybody would probably do everything that they could never do before without getting hurt, and that would kind of be more like an immediate thing than like living situations thousands of years and stuff. So like
I still think you'd have to make room pretty quickly. You would want to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah, but like you gotta imagine like there's a lot of people that like a lot of people in the world would try and just kill people because you never would, and they'd be perfectly fine. But you can attack people, you can fire ballistic missiles, take it a step further, detonate a nuclear bomb. I mean, you can do whatever you want to with like literally like there's no reason you wouldn't be able to do anything you wanted to in your wildest dreams anymore.
True, because it's not going to do anything.
It's not going to do anything.
It's not gonna hurt another person. So
it's almost kind of depressing the fact that anything that you would do wouldn't really have any ramifications or consequences because even if you like, look at environmentalists. Like, oh man, the Earth is so special and pure. We have to keep it sanctity. There, it's our home. Whatever. That wouldn't matter because even if you destroy the whole Earth and the entire ozone layer, and if you put TNT in the Earth and blew it up like a cartoon character, you'd still be alive. Yeah, and that wouldn't change no matter what. And so that's another thing. That's like weird.
You could make room by getting rid of like trees and stuff.
Yep.
Because you don't need oxygen anymore.
Yep.
So that's just taking up precious room.
And
at some point, even with all of this, I know it's probably gonna be thousands upon thousands of years, right?
Yep.
but overpopulation is going to become a thing.
Yep.
There's not going to be enough room for people on Earth. You're going to have to start stacking people on top of each other. One idea I had was you don't need a home anymore. You can just live in a hole in the ground. A perfectly fitted hole in the ground for you to exist in.
Yep.
But at that point, does life really matter?
No. And that's like the saddest part about this.
Yeah.
And that leads me to, no, we're not going to stay on Earth.
No.
And
there's
I'll
no
tell you,
reason to.
I'll tell you why. Because NASA and other space agencies like
Mhm.
it have identified tons of planets in the Goldilocks zones of stars. The biggest problem with interplanetary exploration, I should say, is that everything is so goddamn far away from us that we literally wouldn't be able to make it 1% of the journey there without millennia going by.
Yep.
Guess what? Launch a ship towards Alpha Centauri, no food, no bathrooms, and in a few thousand years, we're exploring alien life. Let's take it a step further. Launch a ship at Betelgeuse, one of the brightest stars in the nighttime sky, and just walk around on its surface for a little bit. That sounds fun as hell. And take it even further than that. Launch a ship in any direction. And however long it takes you to find somewhere, you'll get there. You'll outlast the ship that you're in.
Now,
realistically, you don't even need the ship at all.
That's the thing. I don't think that okay, so people obviously are gonna want to probably live on something, but do you really need to?
No.
You could just you could just like float through space for the rest of the time.
Float through space rest of the time.
And
Yeah.
that brings up another question. Is space infinite?
Well, we're going to find out.
You would have to find out.
That's another thing, too, because, yeah, you can send immortal people that would never die throughout the entirety of space to find out, but practically there's no way to report back.
Right.
They wouldn't, like, do a benefit for the scientific consensus. They would just find out for themselves while doing it billions of years later.
It's not like if it is infinite and you're in space, you can't slow down.
You can't slow
unless
down.
some gravity pulls you.
You can't,
but at that point, how are you gonna get off that planet?
Even if you make it billions of years further and find out that it's infinite, which you wouldn't because it'd be infinite,
right?
Then you can't just go back to Earth.
If
Earth is probably gone at that point.
Yeah, if it's infinite, there's no way of finding out it's infinite.
Exactly.
But if it isn't infinite,
and you hit like a big Truman Show style barrier, like a wall,
then eventually, what would happen if there was no more room for anything ever? You can't even. There's no more room for people, planets, stars. There's just no room. Space is full.
No, space would not get full because you're talking about something that would take like too long for the universe not to collapse on itself to be a problem.
If the universe collapsed on itself, the people inside that universe are still going to survive because they cannot die. They can't die. This is why this scenario is probably not as interesting, you know?
That's true too. That's like, it's the saddest possible outcome because nobody can ever do anything to prevent it. Even if like the Earth, like I was saying, like if it like Superman Krypton style just blows up for no reason, even if that happened, humans are just floating.
Yeah.
We're just floating towards nothing. And maybe we'll hit something eventually, and that's it. But we're all just kind of alive and sad. That, to me, sounds awful.
It is going to be awful. It's going to be absolutely terrible.
Yep, and also, like, I want to mention one more point about super-duper immortality, because we're going to normal immortality, which is just that you can't die age-wise in a while. But people who believe in, like, religions and afterlife and heaven and hell and whatever, they'd have to live with the fact that they'll never get there.
Yeah.
You will never get to meet Buddha or Vishnu or whatever your thing is. I think that would take a massive toll on a lot of people's well-being.
Yeah, I wrote something down here. What if you just don't want to exist anymore? There's nothing you can do about that.
There's nothing to do.
You have to exist.
I think at a certain point, whether that's hundreds or thousands of years later, your brain would just give out. You would just no longer be, like, really conscious.
Yeah, you'd have to, like...
Because human brains aren't really designed to last more than a century.
Yeah.
They get Alzheimer's at, like, 70.
But Alzheimer's would be considered like a disease.
Right, but like my point is like human brain, and we'll get into more brain stuff pretty soon with other immortality, but it's generally like just because it's immortal doesn't mean that it can fully function the entire time.
Right. Yeah, so you'd have to basically turn your brain off.
Yeah, I mean, think about how many days you've been alive. How many days do you really remember? Like, what are you, like 20, 21?
21.
21, yeah. How many days of your 21 years of being alive do you remember right now?
I could, like, fully,
probably like less than a year's worth, would you say?
Probably like less than a week's worth.
Less than a week's worth of days. Joker doesn't know who he is. Yeah, so stretch that out. Over 1,000 years, you'd probably have like less than a century of memories. So to me, that's really scary.
Yeah. Not only that, new people that come into the world, there's no reason to teach them anymore.
Yep.
Because there's no need for advancement.
Yeah.
So
there's literally no need for it.
So you can argue that their brains will literally just do nothing.
This is the most nihilistic episode of the show I think we're ever gonna do.
Yeah.
And it's part 2, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So again, no. I kind of just
this isn't good
life
stuff.
is pain.
Life is
but
all pain.
But you can't feel pain.
Yep. And that's it.
So that's kind of that.
All right.
That was shorter than I thought it was
a lot
gonna be.
shorter than I thought it would be.
Because we kind of both came to the consensus that life doesn't really matter at that point.
At that point, it doesn't.
You exist to exist, but you wish you couldn't.
Well, nothing you would do would have any real ramifications on anything that would happen.
Yeah.
Ever to anybody, no matter what. And that's just, I don't know. To me, that's like awful.
Yeah.
So let's
Not
go to
a
the
life
more
I would
fun
wanna
one.
live. Yeah. Let's do that.
I want to go to the one where it's normal immortality, which is to say that you can't die of old age,
Yep.
but you can die through like another way.
So the way I had this,
Yep.
because we're on 2 different pages here. Maybe you can go a little more over your scenario because you have more ways
Well,
of
I
death.
want to hear your take on it.
So I have it where the only way you can die is basically murder. Or not just murder. Like, let's say like you fall, or get into a car accident. Those things can kill you.
We're in agreement here. I
Pain-
guess I just also included diseases, but
I don't think diseases would. I don't think there's a good reason for diseases to count.
okay.
Personally,
fair.
because at that point, cancer is a disease. If you
Yep.
live long enough, you're going to get cancer.
That is an excellent point, but you got to remember cancer isn't from an outside source. It's your own cells going haywire,
True.
you know? So
True.
it's a
But
little
at
different.
some point, you're.
But actually, no, you'd
No?
never get cancer because your cells would never fuck up because you're immortal.
Mm,
So in that specific context, cancer-free, baby. We're in there.
okay, but I still don't. I don't know. I think it's interesting enough if you don't include disease.
Sure.
If there are some scenarios that.
No,
Your disease.
we can not. That's cool.
So I see this turning out to be. Actually, no. That previous scenario was pretty like.
Bleak.
Yeah, dystopian. But this is gonna be like dystopian in a traditional sense.
Yeah, the good old-fashioned dystopia.
Yeah. Everybody loves those.
Yep.
You still.
All right, how would you envision it starting off? Because I have a bit of a starting off point.
So the way I see it starting off is just kind of people continuing to live past what like they should be living at.
Yep.
Like you're gonna see world record. The oldest person currently alive is just gonna keep breaking records for
Yep.
constantly living.
Pretty much.
And at some point, I mean, no disease anymore. Hospitals are probably gonna get pretty empty really quick, right?
True.
So eventually, someone's gonna find out.
Well,
what's going on.
no, don't hospitals still have a use? Because you can break your arm.
See, yes, but empty. How many like arm injuries are gonna go on?
Yeah, but like
How
I
many,
mean, general. Well, okay. What percentage of hospitalizations are people currently dying?
For disease and then like for physical injuries, because that's what you'd have to separate. How much is the disease aspect?
Okay. Disease / like heart attack.
The
Something
way
else that wouldn't happen.
the way I was thinking about it is, COVID basically filled hospitals, and that was a disease.
Sure.
I know that's
sure.
a very contagious disease,
Yeah,
right?
it's also like in the context of a large scope fringe because it was only like 2 years out of like hundreds, you
Right.
know? But still,
But
your point stands.
that filled up hospitals.
Mhm.
And there's not just like viruses that you can consider diseases. Like heart disease is still very much a thing.
Yep.
That's not going to be a thing anymore because again, that's your cells are going to be perfect.
Cells are perfect.
It's just they can feel pain.
So much of human problems are just their own bodies not working very well.
Right.
That's like a lot of it,
Yeah. So
like
yeah,
diabetes, but go on.
I think there's going to be some testing, but really the only thing that you will be able to do to find out is by surviving. At some point, someone's going to live to 200 years old. There's not going to be any disease anymore, but people are still going to die. If someone got murdered,
Yep.
people are still going to die.
Sure.
That's still like, that stuff's still going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to happen maybe quicker than you think.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
maybe we'll talk about that.
Sure.
You can control population in a scenario like this.
Oh no.
You can. you can force sterilize people. Once you realize that like everybody's immortal, the only way you can die is old age. Here's the scenario I came up with is you get to choose. We'll kill you at like 100 years old, but we won't sterilize you, or we'll sterilize you and you can live forever.
Okay.
So, that way you get a choice. Your kids, you get to decide if you want kids or not.
See, I thought a little differently than that. Instead of like an ultimatum,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the world would restructure so that people could choose their death. Maybe just like how you can't drink until you're 21 because you're not responsible.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't off yourself until you're 45.
I think in a scenario like this, they don't really care when you off yourself. They might be glad that you're offing yourself early.
Well,
because-
more so along the lines of like a kid comes home from school and he's like, "Mommy, I had a bad day. I want to die,"
Mhm.
and then he does.
Well, also
You know?
another thing with the scenario is you still need to eat and drink.
Yeah.
That's still something that needs to happen.
Yep.
Your body still needs resources.
Well, I guess the reason that would have to be the case in the sense that we'd have to offer voluntary suicides is that if we didn't, then every single person will die in a horrible accident. Could be hundreds of years, could be thousands, but it's guaranteed if not for peaceful suicide.
Yeah. I see. One idea I had. Have you ever watched Futurama?
I have.
Suicide booths.
Yeah.
So
Pretty much.
I think that's a very viable strategy.
I'm
If you don't
yep.
want to live anymore, suicide booth.
I'll tell you, in an immortal world, I'm a big proponent of suicide booths because I think a guy should choose to go for like 700, 800, 900 years and be like, all right, I'm all set
I'm good.
and good. And he's out.
Thanks, guys. Later.
Yeah.
And then he's out. He's
to
gone.
me,
Like
that's
you
a
said.
fucking champion right there.
Yeah.
Good for you.
He's saving food. He's saving resources for the rest of us.
He banged so many people. He's real proud of it. He wrote books. He
Yep.
made movies.
He wrote books.
I don't know. He does what he want to do in
Yep.
life. And he's there.
Yeah, but I still think overpopulation will be an issue unless you have to force people to die eventually.
Maybe
Would you
in some kind of...
set an age cap at like 1,000 years old if you're still alive? All right, it's time to die.
Well, the age cap would vary by country.
True.
So you could just if your age cap is 1,000 years in like New Zealand, you'd move to Australia where it's 2,000 years.
True.
You know, and then
True.
eventually there's gonna be that country that has infinite number of years and they got infinite people.
Australia's age cap is so hard, like huge, because the animals will eventually kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Of course they would.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could do cool things. Like you could get like a mastery in every single degree and work for every single career you've ever wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, you know. Like your Potato Cast co-host wants to be a filmmaker. His name's Jason, right?
Yep.
But the challenge is breaking into the industry.
Mm-hmm.
If Jason were immortal, all he'd have to do is hang around LA for an infinite period of time. Statistically, that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity will fall right into his lap hundreds, maybe thousands of times. He's good.
That's the thing, though. Why? I don't think Why do we need movies anymore? This
Entertainment. Entertainment. I'll tell you, because you're gonna get fucking bored.
You are gonna get bored. But again, it's not really a need.
No, but
I still think the reason why we have things like entertainment is because like there's the room for it.
right. But like I also think that entertainment is an important part of
Being human.
being like a normal person with normal desires. Like sometimes we want to escape into stories, and I know that if people were immortal, they would certainly want to kill some of their fucking time.
Yes.
So they would do so with books and movies and stories and
Yeah.
stuff.
Borrowing something from borrowing from a concept that me and you talked about a little, but we haven't actually had on the show yet.
Sure.
All crimes would result in death.
All crimes?
All crimes would result in death. At some
What do you
point-
mean?
Because life is not like a penalty anymore, right? Being alive is not a penalty.
Oh.
The reason why the reason why you should avoid jail time is because like so much of your life is now going to be spent in jail. But does that matter anymore?
On that note, how do prisons work? Would someone serving a life sentence stay in jail forever? Or would we eventually enact the death penalty for simplicity's
Right.
sake, like you're saying?
So I think all crimes would result in death.
Maybe not all just death. Although I guess the alternative is you wait like, I don't know, 100 years and the guy who's serving a life sentence is out, or whatever sentence it was, and then he's just out killing again. He doesn't need to reform because he doesn't have to.
Right.
He's gonna be out.
He's gonna be out.
Unless you take it the other way and just keep prisons indefinitely. But I think that's a very bad idea.
I think that is a bad idea.
Because, like, if you give, like, yeah, you can make the most indestructible, amazing, you're stuck in here forever prison. But if you give the man enough time, humans are not dumb. They will spend the time burrowing through that wall like Shawshank Redemption, except they have, instead of like 40 years in that movie, they have like infinite lifetimes to burrow through that wall with like a little pickaxe hammer or whatever.
So
you're screwed.
You are screwed.
You're screwed. Yeah, there's no way out. I think you'd have
to kill prisoners if they try to escape.
Damn. How would you even? Because like again, we talked about this in episode 1 of the show with animals gaining sentience. But like, would jaywalking constitute instant death? What else can you do? You know,
there's nothing you can do, right?
There's nothing. There's no alternative. There's no lower stakes. Because if you like say, oh, Unless you want to say like, oh, you're jaywalking, prison for 10 years. And
Okay.
that's the equivalent of like a minor ticket.
Right.
Because it's only 10 years of your infinite life. You know?
Right. So-
that I guess would be a consequence appropriate for the task,
Mhm.
I guess.
The only thing is, though, is it really infinite? Because at some point, Earth isn't going to exist anymore. We can't
Yeah.
live in space, not yet anyway. Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we can live? But none of that even matters. The sun is going to explode eventually.
Yeah, that's true. That's billions down the line.
It's
But
billions of years, but that's still something you have to think about.
yeah, but like the odds of a guy getting that far who lives in the year 2021
Yeah,
is like
At
not.
zero accidents.
It's like almost zero.
yeah.
Like, for example, you'd have to like stay in your house for thousands. Imagine that you're staying at home for thousands of years. But like literally, like you have to wait, and then only thousands of years went by. You have to wait millions and then billions of years.
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, no, nobody from 2021 would make, if this happens this year. This would never, Jesus Christ, nobody ever would get there. So I don't think that's much of a big deal for like us in the immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually that's a problem, but again, this is practical immortality where you can die any other way. So yeah, no, we're fine there. I want to talk more about like in line with that, people's retirement plans are all fucked up now. Even further, I don't think people.
That's such a small thing to think about.
Well,
though.
I mean-
in the grand scheme of things, it's such a
Let
small
me up
thing
it
to
up.
think about. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me bring it
Go
up. then.
ahead.
Let me bring it bigger, because I don't think people can retire.
You know, all true because
Because-
you'd have to keep
Yup.
working.
All of these old people who are physically in their prime are just stuck in this perpetual state of working for a living until their voluntary suicide, which I
Yep.
still think is a good idea. But
I
this
think
is terrible.
I think old people will probably, be first to go.
Can you imagine if you're like 64 in almost a year and you're right about to retire, and then you retire finally, and then you're immortal and you can't retire?
What about the people that are already retired?
Yeah,
They're just
taking
taking
back
up
to
they're
work.
taking up space, they're taking up resources.
Mm-hmm.
You have to either put them back to work or they'd have
Suicide booth.
suicide booth for a nickel. You make money off of it.
Yeah, dude, I think every single like financial plan is just gone because like, the concept of succession, like when you die, you sign a will and you send your assets
Yep.
to your next of kin, whoever you want to. And that whole concept of succession would no longer exist. Not even in the death sense, but there'd never be any succession in life. Like if a CEO is successful in a company or
Mhm.
any boss of anything ever, then there's no need to replace him. Bosses could stay in their current position for centuries if they want to.
Yeah.
And I think that would become really widespread. And the problem is that severely impacts the opportunities for advancement.
Yeah.
Maybe Jason waiting in LA watching buildings erode, waiting for the perfect opportunity.
Did you write Jason down?
I wrote it down, yeah. Maybe he wouldn't get to be a filmmaker because Christopher Nolan is directing his 7,000th film this year,
Mhm.
and Warner Brothers doesn't want to get a new person ever. Maybe they're all set.
Yeah.
Maybe like the opportunity for advancement in every single career is stifled when they find the perfect guy once.
Now, another one thing with that though is eventually people are they're gonna make mistakes. Not even in the death sense. I mean, like people are gonna make like financial mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Someone big and high up, for an example, someone approved the AOL Warner Brothers transition in like what do you call a merger? A
AT&T
merger.
AT&T
not the-
Warner Brothers,
not
not
the-
AOL.
Actually, no. AOL Time Warner in like 2001.
Oh shit. Okay.
So someone approved that. That person probably immediately got fired
Mhm.
because they had to then split the companies up again, and then both companies had like all massive amounts of debt because of it.
Yep.
So mistakes like that are going to happen eventually, and that's gonna like can people.
Do you not think that people exist that just have a general positive, smart sense of a company? And also, I'll bring you another example. Let's say that an immortal CEO is an awesome CEO for like 100 years.
Right.
And then he makes a big mistake that makes the company in debt and then doesn't make mistakes after that. I think the company would look at his history, his century-old history, and go, okay, 99%, you're pretty in there. We're keeping you. You don't think so?
I don't think so because I still think you need some sort of advancement, right?
You would, and I think I'm arguing
not
that
gonna get-
like, you wouldn't get it.
You're not gonna get it.
I still think you're not
Things
going to
are
get
go-
advancement.
Christopher Nolan movies work now, but are they gonna work in 5,000 years?
Well, what if Nolan evolves as a filmmaker? Because he's always going to know how to direct a movie,
True.
But
what if I still think things are gonna change, Things have to change. I think Nolan we keep using Nolan, but he's kind of very stuck in his ways kind
That
of
is
guy.
true. That is true.
He
Well,
made Tenet you had to go to theaters in the middle of a pandemic at the highest point of it.
That was crazy.
It was a
okay.
it's a bad look.
Let's pick Spielberg because he doesn't really have a specific style. He does all genres.
True.
So Spielberg, his name is synonymous with being a good director. So why not? Like, if Spielberg were immortal, he would never stop making movies.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, unless he doesn't want to anymore.
True.
But even then,
I mean, people. That's another thing. You are probably gonna get bored eventually. Just a living.
That's true.
You're gonna see people. It's not gonna be news articles of like people like having heart attacks and dying. It's gonna be news articles of like 6,000-year-old Steven Spielberg has enough of it and finally ends it.
And he finally makes Jaws 87.
Jaws 87. The shark still looks fake.
Oh yeah, even still.
Yep.
It never will look real.
Never will.
I want to go down another weird rabbit hole though.
Yeah, go ahead.
How much can we possibly remember? I know it's not easy to quantify the storage space of the average adult brain the same way we can like a 2 terabyte hard drive.
Right.
But suffice to say, if you try and make a brain remember 100,000 years worth of data, it's gonna fail. And probably drive you insane in the process. Like, there are a lot of science fiction stories about this concept. One of my favorites is The Jaunt by Stephen King. It's a short story. Find it online. It's worth the read. But imagine you're still alive in 3021, 1,000 years from now, and you've forgotten when you're born, when you grew up, where you grew up, the fact that you hosted Massive Implications with your friend every other week. You've forgotten what a podcast even is anymore. Yep. I mean, that's kind of scary to me. Because how would you have to relearn that if your brain literally ran out of room?
You have to write stuff down. You have to forget some stuff.
You have to choose to voluntarily forget.
Yeah.
And then, like...
I mean, it's kind of what happens anyways, like short-term memories that we don't really need.
Sure, but...
Again, you don't remember everything about your childhood. I would assume you don't remember everything about your childhood.
I wish I did.
People with a photogenic memory are going to get fucking crazy real fast.
Absolutely. And another thing about that, too, is, like, we don't have full control over what we do or don't remember.
Right.
I would choose to remember my favorite moments ever, and I remember a lot of them, but I would rather remember in detail, I don't know, the first time I got laid versus remembering the fact that my dad yelled at me when I was like 11 for spilling something on the carpet. I want to forget that.
Yeah.
It was a mean day, He was in the right. I spilled something on the carpet. The carpet was a nice carpet. I spilled on it.
What'd you spill?
I think it was like a soda.
Oof.
Yeah, I know. It's not good for carpets. It's not good. But I'd rather choose to forget a memory I don't like and just remember the detailed, most possible parts of the ones I do like. But I can't do that.
You have to write down your favorite memories.
I'd have to write it down like an essay and just like fold it away and put it, and then like when I want to go back to it, reread it.
I mean, you can use like storage mediums. Hard drives aren't gonna go well. No, because they have a set life. Even like USB drives, they still have a set life.
Yep.
Well,
I mean, philosophically, everything has a set life.
True.
Like every physical thing, it is the state of complex molecules to become less complex molecules.
Right.
So everything's just deteriorating around us.
Yeah, and I guess there's no good way of like keeping things as a backup because like imagine look at all the like books we lost, all the films we've lost.
Right. I mean,
songs, it's just gone.
There are still things being discovered today. Like that are fragments of books from like ancient Rome, from like 2,000 years ago. That like, oh shit, we just discovered a recent part of Livy's Ab Urb Condita, which is like one of the oldest freaking things ever written. And recently, within the past like 100 years, we discovered this reservoir of random like ancient writings, and one of those was a part of that fragmented thing. And now we've gone from like 15% to 20% of having the whole thing. Right. That's pretty cool that we have more now.
You're talking about that. You can even go like how much stuff from the past 20 years do we have?
Yep.
Like TV commercials and stuff like that. Stuff like that doesn't really matter, but like lost media.
I would say it matters. I think it's important to the context of human history to see what was going on.
True.
Yeah.
But that stuff's gone.
That stuff is gone.
A lot of that stuff is just gone. It's not saved anywhere. And
the fact that a lost film is a thing in the digital age is crazy.
Yeah.
I get it in like the film age where literal reels of film had to be shot and then transferred and then copied. That's crazy. Like a lot of effort and care and attention to not have it all just get destroyed.
Right.
But in the digital era, I have copies of everything I've ever done. whether I like it or not. They're somewhere. I
Right.
know I can probably find it somewhere.
No, I don't.
You don't?
I don't. No, I was been very loosey goosey with like keeping backups of things. I've only like in the past 5 years is when I like started cracking down and being like, okay, I'm keeping this stuff somewhere. And even now I'm not doing a fantastic job at it.
Honestly, the first episode of our Best and Worst Pictures podcast about wings,
Mm-hmm.
there was a period in time where I believed that I lost the audio because the file went corrupt and the backup I'd made, I didn't back it up correctly. So I only had a corrupted file, which could not play or fix at all. And it was only because I happened to put it in my drive to give it to Mud in case he wanted to edit it. Just on the off chance that he did, that I had those backed up for Mud.
Right.
If I didn't do that, I would have lost episode 1 of our new podcast.
Do you think you would have still done
We
Best and
might
Worst
have pulled the
Pictures?
plug on the show because we went for like an hour and a half talking about that movie, and I just to restate everything and not get those fresh vibes. It's like redoing Massive Implications. You know, like
Mhm.
I feel like this because we don't confer ahead of time on our notes, so
Right.
that way we get the fresh reactions from each other.
Right.
So yeah, even then we still like barely skin of our teeth that happened. But like if this was like decades ago, no, there's one copy of everything. It's like a master copy, and it's a very important master copy. And if you damage it at all, the master is destroyed. No, it's a problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes me think because say hundreds of years from now, how much of our media is going to be preserved? Is digital convenience with everything being copied and saved everywhere still going to be as convenient and copied and saved in the future, or is it going to go down and be harder to find things?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell because we're not, we don't have any kind of future sight at all. We're pretty bad at this.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you'd have to find a way of saving data that will last forever.
Right.
Theoretically last forever. Stuff like tape. Tape is very finicky. You keep watching a VHS tape and eventually it's going to break. The quality degrades each and every time. Same thing with cassettes. DVDs and CDs, that medium, they suffer data rot. Eventually the plastics inside they'll either start melting or they have to be kept at very specific temperatures, but even then the maximum shelf life is like 50 years.
Right. And you want to talk about the internet and digital media. Oh, there's nothing physical there to deteriorate. Sure, but there's what's keeping the internet if not physical towers
things.
And all kinds of networks that are based off of hardware, not software.
And right now their way of like backing that stuff up is the methods that I just said.
Right.
Normal
methods.
How many hard drives have you seen fail?
Yep.
We just had to replace real life story. We just had to replace the hard drive in one of Jake's Macs because it was on its last legs.
And that was in what, 2008?
Yeah.
And that was this year that happens. That's like 13 years later. It crapped out.
It just crapped out.
How's Immortal life gonna treat you?
13 years. You'd have to keep buying new things to transfer data on, but eventually things are going to be lost in the process. And
I'll do you another one too. We started the channel Hot Quality Content in 2016.
Yep.
I am on my 3rd hard drive, not because they're crapping out, but because I'm literally filling them up. I'll bet you in a few years from now, that very first hard drive will probably not be readable.
Probably not.
Granted, it wasn't a very high quality hard drive anyway, but the fact that it is crapping out after a few years anyway kind of speaks to the fact that, physical media, no matter what, will deteriorate. I believe the only thing that won't the longest is quartz, but it's not like we're writing fucking hot quality content episodes on fucking quartz.
Now, the only thing, the only solution is if you write every individual 0 and 1.
Right.
But that would take literally forever. Like get a machine to write 0s and 1s in quartz and then
not of movies, of us talking over the movies.
Yes. So
that sounds fucking terrible.
It's not a good time.
Hey, 2,000-year-old writings were preserved because, on the off chance that they happen to be preserved in a way, but like paper and parchment works well, and etching them into stone or talismans or rune stones if you're a Viking, those have worked well for human history. They're still deteriorating, but they're there, and you can't put Iron Man 3 on there. There's no 300 gigabytes worth of space on there.
No.
But you can absolutely write like, "Hi, my name is Bob," and that'll stay there for 10,000 years.
Yeah, you have to make very complex like compression algorithms.
Physical handwritten compression algorithms.
Yeah, which would fucking suck.
Hell no.
So hard. Oh,
Hell no. So yeah, data and storage taking and memory, both literal memory and computer memory, are both massive, massive challenges. And like, yeah, sure, you could, even if you found a way to like transfer your thoughts to paper, or if you could literally upload your mind, all that stuff, you as a person would still be starting to go crazy because you're like 5,000 years old and don't remember where you were born. Pardon me. You don't remember where you were born, where you live, who you are, what you're about. You don't remember these basic concepts that you knew thousands of years ago, but your brain can't recall.
Yeah.
You know, so you're probably going a little nuts. So at that point, even if you have all this reliable stuff around you, assuming it's reliable, you probably don't even know how to use it anymore. So that's like, you would need some way to re-educate people consistently. Like every 100 years, hey, this is what iPhones are. If like, let's say people
the iPhone 5000,
the iPhone
eventually.
5000. But like, I believe in re-education now anyway. Like if you grew up in like the 60s, like that means that you're elderly now and you probably hate technology.
Things have changed so much since
because
then.
you don't understand, you know, like how to use a smartphone. So I believe in re-education just in general. That on a larger scale would be necessary. On a much larger scale. Imagine if like a guy from like Viking times is immortal and he comes to now. I know that's not the question, but like if that were the case, oh my God, the re-education over the past just 100 years, let alone 1,000 years. Oh my God, there's so much like medical advances. There's so much like fundamental social concepts that you're just never going to grasp unless you're taught them. So stands to reason, hundreds and thousands of years from now, that'll happen on an even bigger scale.
So one thing I will say to that is, eventually, will you have outlived your usefulness? That's kind of, and then you get to like a forced death perspective. If you've outlived your usefulness, like let's say you're not up to date with all the current day modern technology, so you can't work in any industry at this point, you just kind of exist. You're now taking up, you know, precious resources that take away from everything else, you know.
I mean,
food is going to be it's going to start getting pretty scarce, wouldn't you imagine?
I mean, okay, it's difficult because I would argue no, I have two minds about this, but my main mind is saying, no, of course not. You're always going to be useful to some extent, because even if you're like 1,000 years old and you've lived as a doctor, you've lived as an astronaut, you've lived as all the careers of Johnny Sins in porn. If you've lived like 10,000 careers, you can still do like 10,001 careers. You can still do the next thing, whatever you haven't done or something you've always done. You can do something else. But as I bleakly mentioned earlier, yeah, if you're going nuts and you're like losing yourself, literally losing parts of your mind because you can't recall basic facts about yourself, that is exactly akin to someone getting Alzheimer's in our life with us not being immortal. So at that point, what do? Well, we care for them until it's their time.
Right.
There is no we care for them until it's their time. We just have to care for them until the end of time. Or suicide booth.
Or
I lobby suicide booth.
Or death. At like a certain age, you know, you reach 1,000, you're done.
Yeah, like a mandatory, like, hey, you got to get out of here. But even then, like, I still think picking an arbitrary line, like choosing 1,000, I think that certain countries would, countries would be different, but also
you can set it to like each country is different. I think eventually you could look at people that are living past a certain age and then be like, okay, so they're not really useful anymore. Like they don't really think of anything at this point. Now they're outlived their prime. It's time to die.
Yeah.
Which is a very morbid thing to say, but
right. And that's kind of scary as well. But I don't know. I feel like as long as they're still mentally there, let them be. Even if they 5, 10, 15,000, 20,000, a million, if they're there and they're cool and they're ready to keep working, let them keep working.
All right. Well, sterilization. Then you'd have to do sterilization to prevent overpopulation, right?
I believe that interstellar travel, even if you need food and resources, is still going to be massively advanced if people can stay alive. Because think about it this way. How many excellent scientists never were because they died in a horrible accident?
A horrible accident that they would still die of.
Oh, shit. Because they died of old age.
Probably not a lot.
Okay, fair. I had a better argument.
You had something
in
going
my
there.
head. I had an awesome
you
argument.
were like, "Oh, I got him this time."
I was like, "I gotta get there." I did not get there. No, but I will say that like my basic point in my head stands, which is that a scientist who has an infinite lifetime will discover a fuckload more than a scientist who doesn't. Like, let's say Stephen Hawking was still alive. Stephen Hawking was breaking new ground up until he died. Einstein was breaking new ground up until his untimely death. And yes, deaths will still be untimely, sure.
Right.
But
Well,
assuming
maybe very timely because you can decide.
you can choose when to. But if you're a scientist and you're in good health and standing and, you're hitting 80, 90, 100, 110, 120 years old and you still want to be a scientist, well, if you're making breakthroughs, odds are you're still going to make those breakthroughs. So whoever's going to be the next, our frontier right now is quantum science. So whoever's like the next big quantum scientist who pushes those boundaries, they wouldn't die unless for a horrible accident. So our quantum tech is going to leap way forward pretty damn quickly.
Yeah, well,
that's the argument in my head I almost made.
Okay. I think the only way we'll ever be able to like get to other planets within our lifetime, but eventually Earth's going to die. I just looked it up. Earth has 30 million years.
Oh shit.
Which, that sounds like a lot of time, but if you're immortal, that's
I thought it was in the billions of scales. I guess it's only millions.
No.
Well, I guess if you're adding in
the sun has 5 billion.
Okay, all right. So if we can prolong Earth, we can make it to a measly 5 billion.
Yes.
So
right. If we can, we leave Earth, but you'd have to like get everybody to like start doing quantum physics and whatnot, right?
Well, no,
you'd have to whenever you're born, your job is now selected for you. Guess what? You're a quantum physicist.
No. I don't think it's mandatory quantum physicist. I think it's more along the lines of like, once that one guy comes along, and it shouldn't be very long because statistics, once that one guy comes along who pushes every boundary because he has infinite time to do so.
In 300 million years.
Yeah, I think so. I absolutely think so because
I'm assuming this right here is assuming that like this is without climate change.
Well,
because you'd have to get rid of climate. You'd have to really work to get rid of climate change, right?
Well, let me hit you with this then.
Yeah, go ahead.
How often does a scientific breakthrough happen just in our life?
I depends on what you consider a breakthrough.
I would.
Can you give me some big scientific breakthroughs?
Ranging from like medical breakthroughs to like universe astrophysics breakthroughs to like a invention that changes the world. Like I'd say every like maybe 10 years.
Yeah,
one of those comes around.
Yeah,
and that's with
right.
people dying before they hit 100, unless you're very lucky, like Kirk Douglas. Then in that context, those people that do those things would now have more time to do more things like that before they die. So I would reckon that 10-year gap is going to shrink quickly to 5 to 3 to 2 to 1 to and then all of a sudden, like every week, a new amazing scientific breakthrough just happens to the point where like that's what's happening in the world because we're all immortal and we're all doing that.
Yeah,
I fall on that side of the statistics, and in that sense, one of those inventions has got to be something amazing to help stifle the dying Earth and or get people to other planets. Because Elon Musk is already trying his damnedest to do that.
True.
He's not doing a perfect job, but he's trying. He's trying. Like one of the only guys who's doing it.
His company has made progress.
He has absolutely made progress. I think he owns the most satellites.
Probably.
I think that's
probably
true.
At this point.
But in any case, he's
gonna have to keep sending them because his satellites are actually designed to like dissipate.
Right.
Like when they come in on re-entry, they'll burn up.
Right, and that's on purpose. Yeah. But you gotta imagine that like that guy can only do that because he is a billionaire.
Right.
It like you need to have billions to just burn if you want to do space travel because you're not getting anything back.
No, you're not.
You're not even getting humans back.
No.
You're just sending robots because humans are just gonna die on the way. So so that's like the only position where you could possibly do that. Whereas like immortal people, well, guess what? A lot more power in there too as well. We touched on it early in the episode though. Resources limited, very difficult to sustain. But I think with the whole voluntary suicide after a certain point, population will manage itself. And also, there's not a whole lot of reason to have kids anymore. What do you mean you don't need to carry on your name anymore?
True.
Because you're carrying on your name.
Okay, but you can, but accidents still happen.
Sure, maybe have a kid if you want.
You have to get sterilized.
Well, that'd be weird too, because like if you don't age, then let's assume you look like you're in your prime all the time. Then you'll have a kid 25 years later, they'll hit their prime and they'll stay that way. And then you're both like 25 forever.
What's up, son?
It's like In Time with Justin Timberlake.
Yep. Oh.
Everybody's in time. Whereas like, hey, this is my mom and my grandmother and my girlfriend. And they all walk out and they're the same like 20-year-old model actress. Yep. Which is hilarious to me. But so it'd be that. So you can have a kid if you want, maybe. But there wouldn't really be a need to. Unless, of course, protecting against a horrible accident.
Yeah.
So, but for all intents and purposes, you can be the you that you want to exist forever.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good place to kind of leave that off, unless you have anything else to say.
Yeah, I did have one more point.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's just basically on the philosophy of being immortal. So when writing these notes, I kind of stumbled upon something that I realized is the reason that I do what I do. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm not going to share too many details about it because I'm still in the early stages, but I'm pretty proud of it. And I want to do it. And a lot of the reason that I'm doing it is because I've always heard people say they want to write a book. I'm one of those people. I've always wanted to write a book, but I've never actually done it. So I want to transition to being a person who's actually done it. The point with all this is that I'm motivated to do that because, and this is kind of morbid, I'm running out of time to do it. Like if you look at like 52 weeks in a year times about 100 years, that's 5,200 weeks. That's about 5,000 weeks before any one of us dies. And you and I are in our 20s, so we're all about a quarter through that already. If there weren't this ominous ticking clock in the back of my head all the time, I don't know if I'd feel motivated to write as much or as quickly as I'm trying to do. So in that sense, being immortal, people probably wouldn't feel motivated to do anything because there's really no reason not to do it tomorrow or the day after or a century from now. Because that's when I might feel like doing it that day. So I believe a world full of immortals, an aspect we're kind of overlooking is that, I keep talking about like, the scientists are going to break through all the time, breakthroughs. They probably wouldn't now that I keep mulling it over, because they might just be like, I could push the boundaries of quantum mechanics and try and save the life on Earth, or I could wait another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I'll be in the exact same position to do that anyway. And there's no consequences. So that thought to me is troubling. So the idea of immortality is very cool on like paper. Like if you're like a kid watching a superhero movie and you're like, wow, immortality. I want to be immortal. That sounds so fun. But you'd probably be a worse person for it because I don't think you'd really be a productive member of society. And we're pretending that every member of society is going to be just like this, so they're not really productive at all. So I hit that thought and I got pretty sad.
It's deeply profound.
Why, thank you. I try and be.
You know what? I think that's a good place to wrap things up.
Cool.
And, to wrap things up, we're going to hear what you guys have to say. As always, leave a comment below with your opinions and takeaways from today's topic, and it'll be responded to on the very next episode. And with that,
what do we got?
We actually do have a comment. We have 2 comments here.
Oh boy.
Let's read the Ling Gods first, because he's not really bringing like a previous scenario we had. He's just saying like, hey, hey Jake, I made it. Hope you reach 1,000 subs with this. So thank you, the Ling God.
Thank you so much for supporting us.
We hope we do too.
Hey, look, every comment helps the YouTube algorithms get us that much closer. So we appreciate that.
And Marcus, Despot here, my friend Marcus. He said a part 2 enclosing aquatic/semi-aquatic sea life would be amazing, or how land-dwelling species could survive in the incoming marine nukes on the ice caps to raise the sea level.
That is massive, and like we both mentioned, we both kind of just glossed over
the sea,
under the ocean sentient beings. We've already said we're gonna do a part 2 eventually. To that episode, because we only focused on selfishly the human-centric problems regarding animals coming to life, but like there's so much aquatic-based chaos that would ensue. That we just simply couldn't get into tacked on at the end of an hour episode.
But yeah, that's something that we'll definitely have to talk about a little more.
Absolutely.
Not even just a little more. That's a whole.
That is its own episode.
That's a whole nother sea to look at.
We have another few episodes lined up we want to kind of get to first, but that's absolutely on the docket and that's going to happen. I promise.
So definitely look forward to that, and with that, Jake, where can people find us online?
I'll tell you. You can find me at CakeJamara on social media and on YouTube at youtube.com/hotqualitycontent. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. I'm so excited. This is basically my baby project of commentating over movies and just, editing together the highlights, uploading them every Saturday at 12:30 in Eastern time. We're very proud of what we created. And yeah, hop on over there if you like watching movies with us, because we're, we like to yell at them and point out the stupid stuff sometimes. So super fun. And you can find 12star, aka Joquin, my co-host, on social media at 12star, but the L is actually an I, uppercase.
So just on Twitter, I'm actually I'm gonna put, I don't know if you know what Linktree is, but I created a Linktree account and I have a Linktree now that's gonna have all my links in one neat little sort of place. So look in the description. You'll find me on everywhere I am, basically. And yeah, thanks for sticking along. We hope you come back next time.
Sounds good. See you then.
See ya.